Hi guys, in today's video, I'll be watching VS gameplay and I'll point out any areas for improvement as we go. Kinda like a coaching session, you could say. By giving plenty of feedback, I believe it will help not just these players, but everyone watching as well. Before we get into the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. The opponent's deck is a golden pump with lightning. They didn't used to run lightning before, but lately it's been showing up, probably because of the witch. At this point, the opponent has quite an elixir, so I think he should favor the pump. First off, I didn't see exactly how they got such a big elixir, so I'm not sure about this situation. Is looking pretty bad. In situations like this, there are two defensive options. The first is to play a defensive Xbow. The second is to cycle Tesla and archers to get them ever. However, with this much of an elixir, cycling to ever archers is pretty unrealistic. So defensive Xbow is still the easier option to defend. And if you defend with Tesla, the first set of archers you play will get taken out by the Electro Dragon and another. In other words, you need to cycle archers twice, which makes it harder to defend. On the other hand, a defensive expert has a high HP and can deal damage from a distance, making it extremely useful for defense in situations like this. And this expert here is really not a good play. Your opponent still has a massive elixir lead, and going with only 6 elixir means it will be easily defended. Plus, you have to spend more elixir to deal with a counter push. In this situation, it's probably best just to cycle your cards instead. This knight's placement will just get taken out at a bridge, so it's better to play as far back as possible. You should always make sure to press your Tesla one time down from the middle. As you can see from this position, the princess on the opposite line isn't doing anything. If it is both lanes effectively defense, your gameplay will improve a lot. The opponent doesn't have lightning, so the matchup isn't exactly in your favor, but there's definitely room for much better plays. And that's the kind of advice I'll be giving as we go along. With this hand, it's better to play the log on the right side. I understand the urge to go for cheap damage with Esprit Chain, but it's better to play in a way that makes the most out of your archers. For example, like I mentioned earlier, if you play the log on the right, your opponent will have a for respawn with something. Then when guards on the left dies, you can play Esprit in front of your archers, forcing your opponent to deal with both lines. Against the boss bundle, the only card you have to deal with it in this hand is Tesla, so pressing it in the middle is the best option, so his play here is actually pretty good. However, pay attention to the next defense since the Tesla has already been played. It will be interesting to see how he handles upcoming push. He plays Knight and Vultures. The placements are all really good here, needless to say. This is an excellent defense. However, since he played a Knight here, he can go on the offensive. That's because the opponent has post-banned and Prince and Mega Knight, meaning without their Knight, it's hard to defend the Xbow. That's a good archer placement. This spot Aaron can completely shut down the ball breakers. Since their knight hasn't cycled back yet, you shouldn't go in with the expert. Pressing a knight in the middle is the best choice here. Yes. For now, I think it's fine to favor the musketeer. Bro, why isn't he playing favor here? But starting with Scary instead of the knight, here is a really good play. he plays a Mega Knight aggro with Knight blocks Prince Charge with Scary and then cleans everything up with Everchester. I think that's a really solid defense. However, if he had favored the Musketeer back then, the defense might have been even easier. And the reason he's going on the offensive here is because he has Everarches on the field and a knight in hand. The boss bandit and the prince were just too strong here, so this push didn't break through. His defense is perfect. He plays the boss bandit to the middle with archers, plays the knight where both prince's towers can target, and also make sure to draw the musketeers aggro. And this is definitely Tesla in the middle. The opponent is playing the musketeer from the back, and if you don't forward, you're gonna face the same kind of push again. It's exactly the same as before. Against the Mega Knight, play Knight against the Prince and guards. Lock first and then play Spirit to take out guards. And Scary to finish up the Prince. That's probably the best approach. Honestly, playing the Knight here wasn't the best choice. Spirit would have been much better. Playing the Knight guarantees the defense, but it also means you won't be able to go on offense again. And it makes defending against the boss bandit harder. Plus, with the Everarches already on the field, I think Spirit alone could have been enough to defend. The reason his last push didn't connect was because he didn't have Knight in his hand. That's a good defense against the Prince. Going on the offensive here is pretty risky. He probably went in because the Tesla was still up, but it's not an Everarches cycle, and there's an Mega Knight coming from the back. On top of that, the opponent will likely defend with the boss bandit, so you can commit much elixir here. The push ends up being half-hearted and it leaves you vulnerable to the scary counter. By cycling back to his archers, he was able to defend successfully. Building a knight and archers set up on one side like this is generally effective against almost any deck. So I think it's a play you can actively look for. Because the placement of the Spirit and the Knight was slightly off, the Mega Knight ended up jumping into the tower. However, thanks to his quick wave archers, the damage was minimized. I think his overall gameplay was really good. If he improves his knight usage a bit more, he should get even better. The next opponent is running Jorir. I haven't quite figured out the best way to play against this deck yet, but consistently pressuring might be the best approach. That's because he has a forever, so if it turns into a spare chip game, you are clearly at a disadvantage, meaning you should try to connect to Xbow. One reliable way to catch the Joyer is with the knight. If you play the knight in front of your tower, about 1 second before the Joyer runs, it will draw the aggro and take care of the goblins. The second method, which can be done at any timing, is placing a Tesla in front of your tower. Normally, a snowball can knock back a unit like a knight, allowing the goblins to reach the tower, and the same goes for the log. Tesla, on the other hand, doesn't move, which makes it excellent in that regard. Also, when you have a Tesla up, you can defend perfectly against a goblin drill with just a log. No need to play something like E-Spirit. However, the timing for this is very tricky, so it's worth practicing many times. He's about to play another goblin drill, and since the opponent doesn't have log in hand and you've got archers on the field, you can defend it with a knight. Okay. That Mighty Miner is out of the exposure range, so they will probably drop a cannon or furnace to cover it. But given the timing, there's not much you can do about it. This was simply unlucky, where we are heading into double elixir now, so you can start pressuring on the right side. Since the left side has taken more damage, I recommend pushing the opposite lane. That's because if you keep attacking the same side, your tower will just get chipped down by space. This isn't just effective against this deck, it works really well against the opponent with fiber. Here the opponent played a droid and also played a fiber, so going on the offensive now is a good choice. This Tesla is also good. I often praise my Tesla right after the opponent uses a spare. The Xbow managed to get a bit of chip damage, and now he's going in with another Xbow to keep up the pressure. Beautiful, he connected to the tower again. The opponent played a fiber on that Xbow, so you can cycle back and play another one. And the momentum is right now is absolutely perfect. On top of that, the advertiser is still up, so there's no need to play anything for a while. It's a huge threat for the opponent. Okay, looks good. I guess this archer in the middle is good, perfect. And from that position, you can also deal damage to the mighty miner. This another expert isn't very good. It's obvious to have both experts taken out by a single fiber, and since his push has ended up here, he needs to focusing on defending again. Since the vultures are coming back around, he can catch the next drill with the Tesla and then go on the offensive again. You can usually defend the drill with just the Tesla, but if they also throw in a log like this, you need to drop another card to get a full defense. The opponent made a good move by playing fiber on the expert, but luckily the archers are still alive. Since the opponent had an Evo Cannon, the archers didn't end up being all that effective. This expert is really good. If he keeps up the pressure like this, it's gonna be hard for the opponent to launch any defense. And just like this, even if they push, you can defend simply by pressing a Tesla, and there's no need to play the log until an extra spirit comes in. The opponent has played another drill again. But the placement doesn't really achieve anything. Oh my gosh, he's playing an Xbow Tesla. Okay, and now the opponent is trying to play another drill while defending Xbow. With this kind of damage lead, the opponent should be focusing more on offense rather than spending elixir on defense. So the right side just press the Xbow on a Tesla to keep up the pressure and put the rest of your effort into defending. The last Xbow connected as well, and the game is over. An excellent match overall. Alright, that's the final match in this video. The last opponent is playing the Graveyard deck that was extremely popular last season. The spot where which used to be has been replaced with the furnace. With the Evo version, you have to play both Fireball and Log to stop it. But with the Evo Furnace version, you can usually defend with just a Fireball and plus E-Spirit or another cheap card. So I feel like the matchup is a bit better now. Also, the older meta through Cycle Graveyard decks were easier to break through. You could often connect with your second Expo because their cycle was heavy, but against a deck like this, their cycle speed is almost the same as yours. So no matter how fast your cycle, they can still defend, and on top of that, they will chip away at your tower with poison. While I was talking, he ended up taking damage from the furnace, but against that, you should definitely defend with something like a log. The best approach here is simply not to go on the offensive. I get the urge to attack, but it's not gonna work out, so just don't go on the offensive. That's because with the opponent running counter, you already have the damage lead, and there will be plenty of opportunity to chip away the fireball later. The press might be boring, but it's the only sure way to win. And if you take damage from a graveyard or poison, pressing a defense Xbow on the opposite land after our poison range makes it much easier to defend the next push. And also lets you start your fiber cycle. In a situation like this, since you've already taken damage, going on the offensive is a good choice. However, I think it's pretty much impossible for this push. But by going on the offensive here, you can force the opponent to use their poison or play their evo card. That way, it makes defending easier, and you can favor the side where you've already chipped away to take the damage lead. Honestly, I have no idea why the opponent went for a graveyard on the right side. Well, thinking about it, maybe the opponent shifted to the right because if they keep playing the same lane, every time they drop a furnace, you could get chip damage with fiber. He played the fiber and log for the furnace, that's great. This Xbow is really bad. I get that he wanted to push because the advantages were on the field, but that just leads to it being defended with poison and barbaric while also taking tower damage. On top of that, the Evernight is back in hand. I think pressing a defensive Xbow on the right lane would have been the better choice here. In situations like this, it's better to go for a defensive Xbow since the opponent doesn't have poison in hand. There's nothing they can really do about it. With a defensive Xbow up, even if you fireball the tower, it will still help defend when a furnace or something else comes down afterward. I'm not sure why the opponent played their furnace in fireball range, but it's a great chance to get some chip damage with a fireball. And the defensive Xbow here isn't a bad play. I think it would have been better if he had played it a bit earlier. Oh, even so, his defense was excellent and he managed to defend without taking much damage. These archers are bad play here. The reason is that the Goblin Heart is pressed low, so even if archers can reach it from this position, and since the opponent has also Evonite, they won't accomplish anything at all. Playing Firewall on their furnace to get some chip damage was a good play. Both towers are at about the same HP and with only 30 seconds left. I think the best move is to chip away with their Firewall cycle while defending the graveyard where. Okay, Firewall. This is the opponent's final push. He has to defend this perfectly. No! No way the Spear Goblins are getting hit on the tower, but he can Firewall this. Bro, what a close game. That's it for today's video. If this one gets a good response, I'll make a part 2. See you in the next match.